2 words, Revo Fitness. Here's a few more. Simple, 24/7, reformer Pilates, body scanners, massage chairs, squat racks, free weights, pin and plate loaded equipment, no lock-in contracts, no bullshit. All of that and more from just $9.69 a week. That's surprisingly affordable. Join now at Revo Fitness Myre or download the Revo Fitness app. RevoFitness.com.au or find the Revo Fitness app in the App Store.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fireplay. I am your host, financial planner Canna Campbell, and today we're talking about refinancing. The Refinancing 101. When you need to refinance, why you should be refinancing, and how to do it properly to make sure that you save tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars off your mortgage. That money that can then be channeled into other areas in your financial well-being. And of course, we are joined by mortgage expert John Micalizzi from Blue Lantern Home Loans. Now, as you're aware, we often have Adam in here. We're mixing things up a little bit with John, who has the equal amount of experience. And for the record, I have been using Blue Lantern myself for many years. I know the team. I've known them for like almost close to, I think, 18 years. And there is a reason why I had them on the show. It is because I know how good they are. I know how reliable they are, how transparent they are, how trustworthy they are, and of course, how good they are at actually helping make sure that you get on top of your home loan and you actually see it come down over time. Because unlike a lot of mortgage brokers and banks, they offer ongoing service which costs you absolutely nothing. And just so you know, should you decide you want to reach out to John from Blue Lantern, I get absolutely zero benefit or incentive to do so whatsoever. The only benefit I get is sleeping well at night, knowing that you are finally in some good hands. And I love it when you guys message me to say thank you for passing on contact details, and I hear about how much they've been able to help you save and how much time and the relief off your back. So please keep those messages coming in, because it really makes me feel happy. And of course, I will to continue on working on finding other great contacts in other areas of personal finance to make sure that we are all heading in the right direction, so you can actually apply everything you're learning in your life. All right. Okay. Again, a quick reminder, everything in these episodes on Sugar Mama's Fireplay is always general in nature and for educational purposes only. But today we want to talk about, with John, refinancing, because a lot of people have mortgages and a lot of people want to understand their mortgages and save money. So sometimes the best way, if you're not going to get given a mortgage rate cut, interest rate cut, is to go and find one yourself. And that is where refinancing comes in. So enough to hear from me. Let's hear from John talking about refinancing. John, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Canna.
Can we just get straight into this for the listeners? Because I know so many people will get overwhelmed with the idea of refinancing, not knowing when's the right time. Is it too soon? You know, is there going to be damage to my credit if I apply to refinance? It gets knocked back. Can we just go back to the basics, the 101 of refinancing, and explain first of all what refinancing your home loan actually means and how it works?
Okay, so refinancing is when you change your existing mortgage from one lender to another. Okay, obviously it pays only to that if you're going to save money. You know, most people come on the property journey. You know, they get the property, they get the loan, and then refinance can come after that. The key difference is, when you're buying a property, there's a contract of sale. Sometimes the price is unknown until the very end. The loan amount is unknown until the very end. Whereas with the refinance, the property's known, the loan amount is known. So therefore, it's a case of doing the numbers as to whether refinancing puts you in a better financial position than staying with your current lender. When
is the right time to consider refinancing? Because, some people may have only taken out a home loan 6 months ago. Is that too soon? Or do they is there a sweet spot where they're the biggest savings are, say, 5 years in? Or is it even further? Like, when do you know? It's a hard one. Even as a financial planner, I think, when do we need to shop around?
Okay, so with our clients, we have an annual review process. Okay.
And that's free. That's part of the service.
Part of the service.
And that's what I explained at the beginning of this episode. People do not understand how valuable that is.
Yeah. So that's part of the service. So at least once a year, check in, understand where your loan is at, questions such as, is it the right rate? Does it still meet your needs? Okay, so it's not all about rate.
Yeah,
Right.
that's such a good point, because like the setup of a home loan is really important. And that's why I say get it set up the right way the first time.
Yeah, exactly. So things like annual package fees can get away from you and you forget about them. But then if you understand that there are better options out there, it can make a significant difference.
Definitely. Okay, so what are the key benefits then in refinancing? What is the driving motivation for me to pick up the phone and call a mortgage broker or call you or call my bank?
The key one is comfort. Okay, so through the process, and you may not refinance, right? But at least through the process, you'll understand, is it the best rate that I can get at the moment? Is it optimal? Does the loan still, and do the banking features still meet my needs?
Yeah.
Right? And that, to have that comfort and to understand where you're at is critical, okay? And then only when you do that can you understand if you actually need to refinance, okay? And so one flows through to the other.
It's interesting you say that. The other day, someone messaged me on Instagram to say that they did your 7-day mortgage challenge at the beginning of the year. And they said they always thought they were being overcharged for their home loan on the interest rate they were paying. But in doing this particular challenge and making the phone calls and doing some research, they actually realized they're on a really competitive rate. And all of a sudden they felt this sense, as you said, of comfort. Yep. Knowing, actually, I'm on a great rate. And then, of course, from comfort comes a sense of gratitude as well. So it was really interesting hearing that feedback from them. And it obviously had a positive impact on how they continue on to work with their mortgage. And they now know that what to look for when it comes to it potentially being time. They'll know the signs as to when it's time to refinance.
Exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, you said comfort, but then, of course, refinancing, obviously, we're all licensed. We need to make sure that we put every single customer or client into a better financial position in order to be able to justify making tweaks and changes and using various financial products. Surely that comes in after comfort, actual savings.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, as I said, if you start the process, then the process will tell you whether you need to refinance or not. Right? If you ask the questions, if you have a good look at it, and there's a balance, right? So, you don't want a broker constantly recommending refinances for their needs because they are, clipping the ticket on commission. But then you also don't want the other end of the spectrum where some brokers are lazy and don't refinance you because they're just happy for the loan to sit there and chase new clients. So it's about understanding, the broker, what their drivers are, how client focused they are, and then going through the process yourself, asking the questions yourself, going through that mortgage health check process, and then determining whether you should look at a refinance.
Okay. All right. Do you have any examples of, how much you've been able to help people save by refinancing and the impact of having to do a little bit of hard work in obviously the data gathering and form filling?
Well, it's not that hard work. It's these days, a lot of the documents are electronic and they can just be emailed or uploaded. We've got a portal now where everyone gets a personalized portal and they're just uploaded. So that's one, I think that's one important myth, that if we can try and get rid of that myth today, that'd be great, because I don't believe it's that difficult in this day and age.
I have to say, as a long lover and client of Blue Lantern, I rarely have to do anything because you have so much data on me. It's not like I'm, that's the great thing about that ongoing service is you already have 85% of the stuff for me anyway.
Yep.
Because you've got all my files, and it's just literally sometimes a 2-second job.
That's right.
To do it.
And going back to the example that I was going to quote, so I had clients who, these clients, very busy people, and they're probably, we'll call them unicorns. They had a rate with their existing bank of 7.7%. And
I feel sick for them.
Well, because they were using offsets, they thought, oh, well, it's not that impactful. They thought they were too busy. And I just said, okay, even though you're not my client yet, to build a relationship with you, I'm going to talk to your existing bank on your behalf and get that rate down for you without you having to do a thing. And so I got that rate down to 6.15.
I hope they sent you a really nice bottle of wine.
Not yet. I'm still waiting.
But that savings is huge.
It's massive. And it's massive because they wanted to do something else. And the actual high rate was stopping them doing something else. They wanted to buy a property for their daughter. And then by managing that process, and it's technically not a refinance because they didn't change banks, but by going through the process and me helping them, we're able to drop rate, create borrowing capacity, and then achieve their objective of, buying the property for their daughter without too much change to their existing banking structure.
And I guess that's another benefit of refinancing, because the bank's numbers on the new figures being lower makes your situation look, and it is obviously a lot more comfortable.
That's right.
And you can do other things. You can look at it,
exactly
an investment loan attaching to that, because your serviceability is now so much better with a significantly lower interest rate like that.
That's right. So that's why we started talking about the fact that, yes, rate is important, but it's not just about the rate. Through the process, you can look at things and go, okay, well, I've retired some debt. Do I recycle that debt? Or do I now look at consolidating other debts? So there's a bigger picture through the process that can save you money in the mortgage in its own right, but then save you money or make you money outside of the mortgage as well.
Okay. Can we go through the process of refinancing? Because obviously you've spoke about it, and that was a refinancing of someone's existing loan facility with their bank, and you went to fight the bank on their behalf, and obviously did an exceptional job. What about, someone who's got 5 years into their home loan?
Yep.
Like, what does that process look like? Because a lot of people think refinancing is going to be, and I know this perception is completely wrong and flawed, but they think it's going to be, oh God, I've got to go digging through my paperwork, and it's not. Can we talk about how smooth and efficient this is?
Sure.
And even the time involved that's taken.
Okay, so if you are a PAYG employee, if you get a pay slip, if you can give me 2 forms of identity, that one I would need a scanned copy of the hard copy, because banks don't accept digital copies yet. But that's easy. Everyone can do that on their phone.
Yeah.
Send me a photo of it. It's that simple. 2 pay slips, loan statements and credit card statements, complete a fact find, done. I can refinance you. So that shouldn't take anyone more than an hour.
Yeah. I actually have all those documents saved on my phone already, just because there's always situations where someone needs something from me.
All I say is I wish every client was like you.
I'm sounding really OCD, I realised.
No, it's actually a good point. I maybe this is a good platform to do it. I try, when I talk to people, I always try to say, be finance ready. Have your identity documents saved somewhere where it's safe electronically. Know how to get your pay slips. Bank statements is easy. If you're set up for e-statements with your bank, we can send you a link and the bank statements come automatically to us. So it's not that hard to be finance ready for refinance or for any other type of finance for that matter.
I know for myself, the reason why I have it organised like this is I'm time poor. I've got 3 kids. My partner's away, away overseas 50% of the time. And if I don't do it then and there in the minute, it's going to take 4 or 5 weeks for me to get it back to someone. So if I can literally just access it, and I literally have a file in my phone, in my photos, and it's named. So I know that in that as a photograph of our Medicare card, our private health insurance, my tax file numbers, my ABNs, like every single document, even the kids' immunisation statements, because there's always a situation where you go, you know what, I can tick this off my list of things to do immediately on the spot, and it's done. And it saves me so much space in my brain. And, I have ADHD, so I can very easily get distracted and I can come up with 1,000 excuses to procrastinate. But just having this it's been really helpful in making me stay on top of the family finances whilst juggling a lot of different balls in the air. So it's a simple, easy hack. Use your phone, obviously make sure it's protected and safe and secure. But, again, it means that, you're going to start saving money sooner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think you and I are held to a higher standard. I think your listeners, my clients, would expect that we would be organised.
Yeah.
Because if we're not organised, well, how can we help them be organised? So,
Okay, you make me feel safe. Thank you for being so OCD about them. But, there's simple things that do make life run smoothly, and it takes
Absolutely.
seconds to set up. And once you've set it up on the go, like the other day, I literally uploaded Apple's immunization certificate into my phone. I was like, great, it's now there. All right, so moving on with this process. So, that data, identification process. Then what comes that? Do I need to give you a budget? Do I need to, get someone to get access to the home to value it? Like how does it go from there? I want from start to end the whole process.
So once I have that financial information, including your fact find, so that's where you would have to share with me, living expenses, because that's an important part of, borrowing capacity. Once I assess, then if there is benefit in doing the refinance, I will put 3 lenders to you, because the important thing to note is brokers are held to a higher standard than if you go to a bank. A bank only has to talk about their products. We have to provide you 3 options.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes, we do.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes, very interesting. So when it comes to time saving, well, I'll talk about that later on. So then the way I do it is I work with the clients to help them understand why a certain lender is the best option. And then the house needs to be valued, property needs to be valued. A lot of valuations these days are electronic, so you don't even have to have a valuer come around and inspect the property. It's done via data. So if you're lucky enough that you don't need that, you won't even have to worry about that. And then the loan would be submitted, assessed, should be approved. The only manual part of it is actually leaving your current bank, in that all banks have a manual discharge form you have to sign, where you have to print it out, wet sign it, and scan it. Okay, so if you need help with printing, I'll help you with that as well. But once you get me the hard copy or the scanned copy, then I'll do that on your behalf as well.
And just for the record, you guys work with people across the country.
Yes.
And occasionally overseas as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. You don't think, well, we're not based in Sydney. John can't help us. That's not the case at all. In fact, everything is done pretty much online anyway.
Most things are electronic and digital. And also we will try and make the process as easy as possible for you. Believe me, if we could avoid you signing a piece of paper, we would. But, some institutions need certain pieces of paper signed, but it's getting rare these days.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the whole thing is about efficiency.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Can we talk about the cost? Does it cost to engage with a mortgage broker? How do they get paid? How do you get paid? So that people can understand, I guess, the transparency here.
Well, our firm, we do not charge any fees. So we have a simple business model whereby if you like what we do and we're successful in getting a loan for you, we get paid by the lender, and that is at no cost to you. And in fact, we would back ourselves that in most cases, you actually end up with a better outcome than if you did it yourself going to a lender. Wow.
I like the sound of that. Then can you talk me through some common mistakes people make and pitfalls, like where you've seen people go wrong?
Yeah, well, not with us.
I'd hope not.
Usually the previous broker that we're taking over. No, I'm sure all brokers do a wonderful job.
I mean, from my financial planning practice, I've seen all sorts of doozies that I've had to get you guys to help clean up with what other brokers had messed up.
Yeah, so firstly, the thing is to understand that there are costs to things, right? So there shouldn't be any hidden costs. They should be outlined to you, which is part of our job. Okay, so the costs are, there will be a discharge fee from your current bank. There will be some minor government charges for changing the mortgage holder. And then there may be an application fee from the incoming lender. So what needs to be clearly demonstrated to anyone is that even with those costs, the benefit of refinancing is over and above those costs. Okay? So that's the first mistake people make, is people don't factor in those costs. Second, and then therefore they've changed for no apparent benefit, or the cost outweighs the benefit. The big one is people that restart their loan term.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned this because this is where people end up just chasing their tail. They just refinance to another 30-year term. And of course, there are situations where you have no choice but to get the loan approved, you need to sign a new 30-year term. But don't stick to that. Try and maintain those repayments or increase those repayments so that you.
So this is really important, right? Because and let me explain it to people. So if you're currently 28 years into your loan term, to reset it to 30 is actually like having a 32-year loan. That's what you're doing. You're starting. You're not starting again. You're going backwards.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first issue. The second issue is that all that interest you've paid in the first 2 years, you're paying again. So if you don't manage that, if you just let that loan run its full 30-year term, you will pay, on an $850,000 loan, you will pay an extra $80,000.
Wow. That is a pretty serious pitfall, if you ask me.
Yes. And now I understand your listeners would have all different loan sizes. And if they're saying, well, an $850,000 loan, I would never get an $850,000 loan. Well, let's look at a $500,000 loan. On a $500,000 loan, restarting the term, the extra interest you're paying is $47,000.
Okay, well, you heard it here first, and this has been beautifully explained by John, so thank you. What about knowing whether you're on the right home loan? You know, when it comes to refinancing, how do you feel in your gut that this is actually the right move, you're not going to regret? Because some people are quite emotionally tied to their banks.
My simple answer is, and I suppose it's easy for me because I do this every day, don't be emotionally tied to it. It's the mortgage is the vehicle to your dreams. It's not the dream, right? And so I've had people say, you know, oh, I'm a ex-bank person or I'm a ex-bank person, and I just go, well, what are you doing? Do you really think that bank is sitting there going, yeah, well, we love you, person, we're thinking about you? They're not, I can assure you.
Yeah.
And
you got to be street smart.
Well, yeah, whatever term people want to use, but I would take gut out of it, and it's a financial equation.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
I think sometimes people think, oh, you know, well, I've got all my direct debits set up. I'm going to change banks. I'm going to have to get a new ATM card. You know, update all my details and subscriptions, and it's actually that mindset is completely wrong because that mindset's costing you a huge amount of money.
The best way you can help people is by giving them examples. Okay, so I've quoted this example before, and it's a very good example in that I had a client who came off a fixed period. They got a decent offer of a rate from their current lender, and this is one of my clients. So I do refinance my own clients if the situation is right.
Yeah.
But it's always on the basis of I'll put the numbers to the client, and then we make the decision together. I never force them to do anything. I just make them understand it. Mm-hmm. And so improve the rate slightly. The big kicker was no annual package fee, multiple offset accounts, and by putting all that together, the refinance is going to save them, forecast, somewhere in the vicinity between $45,000 to $100,000 over the life of the loan.
Oh my gosh!
Right, and so when people say to me, "Oh, I don't want to change my direct debits," you know, it's too hard. I just say, well, the value, the gift, the positive reinforcement of doing it is these savings in front of you, right? So then, by putting the numbers in front of people, then that should be a motivator.
Yeah.
2 words, Revo Fitness. Here's a few more. Simple, 24/7, reformer Pilates, body scanners, massage chairs, squat racks, free weights, pin and plate loaded equipment, no lock-in contracts, no bullshit. All of that and more from just $9.69 a week. That's surprisingly affordable. Join now at Revo Fitness Myre or download the Revo Fitness app. RevoFitness.com.au or find the Revo Fitness app in the App Store.
And as someone who's recently refinanced, it's actually really not that hard. You just look at your direct debits, and a lot of it's done not even with a phone call. It's done online.
Yep.
And if you miss one, you always get a notification. This bounced, or this didn't go through, or this is outstanding. You then know, okay, I missed that one. I can go and update my new details now. It really doesn't. We're making it out to be a bigger job than what it is in our heads.
And not to steal your thunder, but I've had clients who, when they've gone through the process, they've gone, I've saved money because I had all these direct debits that I didn't know what I was paying for, and I've just cancelled them, and now I've saved more money. So,
well, make sure they're telling them to apply that to their insurance payments. Okay, and finally, what do you think of people trying to do it themselves? Like, do people actually try and do their own lending? Like, I mean, how? I mean, someone's got way more time than they to go and try and do their home loan. But do people actually have a go at doing this themselves?
Yeah, they do. So currently 70% of loans in Australia are managed by a mortgage broker. So therefore, 3 out of every 10 people are still doing it themselves, and that's okay. That's their choice. Okay, so. But again, I can't stress enough that if you do it yourself, then you are going to a lender, and their only obligation is to their organisation, where they just have to explain their products and services. Whereas brokers are held to a higher standard, and we have to find the best deal and give you 3 options. Okay?
Simple as that.
Yeah. 2, we do the work for you, right? And work, I mean that important part of doing the mortgage health check first, right? So that way then you should get a better understanding of, if you're going to refinance, why. Okay? There's some other things as well that people need to know. So if you want to shop the market, if you want to go to 3 lenders, well, that's 3 times the work for you. Whereas you're dealing with one broker,
they're doing it on your behalf. You're like a personal shopper.
That's right.
And the personal shopper that does your shopping every single year for you.
That's right. Checks that the goods are still working for you, if that makes sense. There's another important aspect here that people often don't understand, that everyone in Australia who has sought credit has a credit file, has a credit score, has a credit report. And if you go and apply with 3 different lenders, that harms your credit score, because it looks like you are getting declined for loans, and then your credit score will diminish. Whereas as brokers, we can do the assessment before we even apply to a bank. We can tell you the answer even before we apply. So that's something critical that people aren't aware of, and people do it themselves and apply for credit too much. Sometimes I have to look at their credit file, and there's no better word than a train wreck. And
really?
And then them getting finance and really good deals is very difficult, because they've wrecked their own credit file.
Oh, God, that's definitely a pitfall, a mistake. All right, look, everything you've shared has been so incredibly insightful, and I feel like I have learned so much as well myself. And I feel motivated to obviously keep working on my mortgage and make sure that if we ever refinance again, we do it in the right way and to our financial advantage. And I love what you guys do, and the guidance and the education that you give all of your customers and clients, including my own. As we wrap up this episode, can you just share with us one final piece of advice to someone who is thinking about it might be time to look at refinancing? What is the one piece of valuable advice you can impart right now?
Do a mortgage health check. Check your own mortgage, and then understand whether it's still meeting your needs. And
if you aren't quite sure, reach out.
So, a problem shared is a problem halved. And also, we will look at it dispassionately and from a numbers perspective, and put those numbers in front of you so that you can make an informed decision as to whether it's worth refinancing or not.
And again, coming back to that comfort of knowing, you had someone look at it and it's okay or it's not, and what to do about it and when to do something about it. And even if that means coming back to you in 6 months' time, or getting stuck into it straight away and getting it fixed immediately, these are really important building blocks that are going to get you back on track in your whole entire financial well-being.
Yeah, so it's a good point. So I have a client who, they're coming off their fixed period. They can't refinance yet because he's just changed jobs. And so what I've done is get the best possible rate from his current lender, which could be better. But then we've diarised that once he has enough overtime on his pay slips, we'll come back to it and then look at the refinance again. So I think we've talked about this before. We're getting into the realm of, I'm almost like his sort of personal fitness trainer, where instead of just him relying on himself doing the push-ups, I'm there
You're a mortgage
pushing him along.
coach. Mortgage reduction coach. I think that has a better
I'd
ring
like
to
to
it.
think so. I'd like to think so.
Look, thank you so much for coming in today and imparting all this wisdom and this important information for people to see the value of refinancing and asking for a better deal, getting a better deal, making sure you are not being ripped off, to be perfectly honest, and you're actually using your money wisely and getting ahead. You know, everyone is worthy and entitled to financial harmony in their lives. And the mortgage is one of the biggest stresses on most Australian households right now, but it's one where we can actually do a lot of very easy things and a lot of different things to have a huge impact in making headwinds and making a reduction in that stress and getting that feeling of progress again and being back in the driving seat. So, you know, John, thank you so much for coming in. I greatly appreciate it. Now, for anyone who's listening, thinks, you know what, I need to give John a call. He needs to have a look at what we're doing and where we're going wrong and what we could be doing better. I will link in the podcast notes his email address and his contact number. So by all means, pick up the phone, give him a call, have a chat. Obviously, he can speak to you about doing a health check of your mortgage for you, of course, for free. In the meantime, everyone, I'm wishing you a fabulous week. I hope that financial fire burns bright within. And of course, we will connect again next Monday morning on Sugar Mama's Fireplay. Ciao for now.
Two words, Revo Fitness. Here's a few more. Simple, 24/7, reformer Pilates, body scanners, massage chairs, squat racks, free weights, pin and plate loaded equipment, no lock-in contracts, no bullshit. All of that and more from just $9.69 a week. That's surprisingly affordable. Join now at Revo Fitness Myre or download the Revo Fitness app. RevoFitness.com.au or find the Revo Fitness app in the App Store.